Hey guys, so today I'm going to demonstrate how to make Play-Doh. I know I have little cousins and they love playing with Play-Doh all the time, but I know sometimes you don't want to have it in the house because then they'll continuously keep asking and it tends to be messy. So this is an at-home recipe that you can make, and it's quick, it's easy, and it's fun. Most of the items that you're going to use are going to be household items, so you necessarily don't need to go shopping unless you're running low on something. This is also easy enough to where you can have your kids or your nieces or nephews help you make the Play-Doh while you're doing it because it's that simple. So the things that you're going to need to make Play-Doh are flour, salt, vegetable oil, canola oil, any type of oil, and then just cold water. And then also you're going to have to put this on the stove for a few minutes, so you're going to need a saucepan and then a spoon to stir. And then I recommend also having a cutting board for when you need the Play-Doh and also when you add in the food coloring, just in case it leaks or it makes a mess. And then other things that you're going to need are, I use disposable gloves just because the color will tend to leak on your hands, and that way it doesn't stain. You can just go ahead and throw these out in the garbage. And then you're going to need food coloring. I just buy the basic assorted food coloring drops, but you can also use Kool-Aid, so I bought a packet of Kool-Aid as well. The Kool-Aid just tends to make the Play-Doh a little bit of a darker shade, so I bought a package so I could show you that too. And then also I have cutters because they can make shapes and stuff out of the Play-Doh as well, so I'll show you that too. And you can get these at the dollar store. They have these all over, so this is a fun thing for them to do too. And then you're going to want to have baggies, just so that way when you're done with the Play-Doh, if you want to save it, you can go ahead and store it. But if you don't want to save it, you can go ahead and just throw it in the garbage. So I have all my ingredients measured out, but you don't have, you can do it as you go, but it just seems to make it easier that they're all measured out. So what I have measured in this bowl is 3/4 cup of flour. I have 3/4 cup of cold water, and then I have 6 tablespoons of salt and 1 tablespoon of oil. So what you're going to want to do is everything, basically, you're going to mix it together, and then you have to throw it on the stove and cook it for a few minutes. So first, I dump in the water, and then you can go ahead and just keep dumping in all the ingredients. So next, I'm going to go ahead and dump in the flour, and then I'll go ahead and dump in the salt, and then I'm going to go ahead and dump in the oil. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to quickly mix it around just so that the flour semi gets wet, so that way when you put it on the stove it'll start cooking it. So I got it mixed around. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to go ahead and throw it on the stove. You're going to want to cook it at a medium to low. You want it to be hot enough to where it's actually going to make the dough, but you don't want it to be too hot where it's going to burn to the pan. So what it's going to look like is once you keep stirring, it's going to look more of like a glue. Once you keep going, then you can see that it will start to get more of a Play-Doh, more of a Play-Doh feel, more of a Play-Doh texture. So what you're going to do is you only have to leave it on there for a few minutes. So what I do is I just keep stirring it until I can see that it's starting to be a Play-Doh texture. And then after it's done cooking, all you're going to do is leave it on the stove for about 2 minutes to let it cool down. And then you're going to knead it and go from there. So I already have one prepared. So that way while this one's cooking, I can go ahead and show you what it's supposed to look like. So this is one that I just made. It's just a ball of dough. So what you're going to do is I use my cutting board, and I go ahead and I'm going to put down a little bit of flour so that way it doesn't stick. And then you're just going to go ahead and I rub it around with my hand so that way it spreads out for when I'm kneading. You're going to go ahead and take the dough in your hand, and what you're going to do is you're going to use the bottom of your palm and you're just going to push on it with both hands just so that you can make sure that it's all mixed together. and that way it's stuck together, so when they're playing with it, it won't be falling apart. So you're just going to need that for a second. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to push it around in my hands and just make it into more of like a cylinder. So that way I can put the color. And you can also put the color in when you put it in the pan originally. I recommend waiting because then you can use more color and you don't have to make it all one color. And this does make a decent amount of Play-Doh, so you're not going to really need to have it all one color. It's not like it only makes for one child. So this looks like it's still doing good. Just got to stir it. A little bit. Okay, and what I do next is now that I have it in more of like a cylinder form, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a knife. Now I use a knife so I can cut it into certain sections so that way I can have them evenly be colored. So this makes about enough where I can cut this into 3 sections. So after you go ahead and cut it, I just go ahead and make it more of like a flat circle. I'm going to go ahead and do that with all of them. And just lay them out. Because that way, when you add in the food coloring, it'll evenly distribute throughout all of them. So this Play-Doh looks like it's almost done. I just want to make sure I stir it because I don't want it to all stick to the bottom of the pan. It's turning to a texture. Alrighty, so next what you're going to want to do is I use my thumb and I just push a little hole in the center of all of my dough. So that way I have the food coloring. I'll go ahead and I'll use 2 of them with the food coloring and then 1 of them with the Kool-Aid just so you can see the difference. So I'm going to go ahead and make green. And you're just going to want to do a few drops so that way it evenly goes through all the Play-Doh. And then I'm going to go ahead and open the Kool-Aid packet. Okay. Let me just check out this one. So now this one's all done. So what you're going to want to do, what I do, is instead of leaving it in the pan, I go ahead and I take it out. It's a little bit hot, but basically it's just going to look like a ball of dough. And I go ahead and I leave it out so that way it can start cooling down. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put on my gloves because now that I have the food coloring, I can go ahead and mix them around. And what I also do is I put out some paper towels as well so that way when I'm going from one piece of Play-Doh to the other, I can go ahead and wipe off the color so that way not all your colors are mixing together. But it's kind of awesome that you can choose any color you want because then the kids will have fun. So first I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix around the one with the Play-Doh, or with the Kool-Aid. And sometimes you're not always accurate, so sometimes you're going to have to add a little bit more of the color if it doesn't stick. So what you're going to want to do is once you have the color, you're going to want to just keep playing with it in your hands until the color is evenly distributed. Once the Play-Doh is the color you want it to be, if you want to make it darker, you can keep adding color. If you want it to be lighter, just add a little bit. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to keep moving it around until it's the color you want. That's what I recommend doing, is leaving it for a few minutes before the kids play with it, just so that the color can dry on there and you don't have to worry about their hands getting dyed because it does dry after a few minutes. So there's the blue. This one's the green. And the food coloring tends to make more of a mess because it's not a powder. It's more of a liquid. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep mixing it around. I'm going to have to add a little bit more of the green. So, and then I'll go ahead and I'll just show you these two colors, and then I'll show you the ones that I already had made from the other day, so you can just see kind of like the differences. And then also, I'll show you how you can use cookie cutters and make cool shapes. And then they can just make them. And then if you leave them out, they can also let them dry and they'll become hard. And then you can put them on the Christmas tree. You can put them around the house if they make any kind of holiday decorations or anything like that. So I'll go ahead and I'll show you these ones. So here's the green. And then I also have blue. These are the ones I just made. And then I also have orange and purple and red. And you can save these. So what I'll do is I'll show you the red. See, I made this one yesterday, and it's still really Play-Doh-y, which is awesome. So what they can do is they can go ahead and move it around with their hands. And then you just stick down the cookie cutter or whatever kind of cutter, and then they can make a design. Now this is a star, so if I decide to leave this out for a couple days, it'll get hard, and then you can drill a hole and put a string or do whatever you want with it. And then I'll just go ahead and bag up the Play-Doh and save it for later, or I can just toss it if I don't want it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.